Okay, so let's do an example here. Let's say we have a system. So here's our schematic. We have a system. It's a closed system. It starts off at state 1. The system then experiences some sort of work and heat interaction. Work is done on it or done by it, and maybe some heat is transferred. So we have Q added to the system from state 1 to state 2, and maybe work done by the system from state 1 to state 2. All right? And the system initially starts off at some energy E1 and ends up at an energy E2. So let me give you some numbers here. Closed system, the heat added to the system is 25 kilojoules over the process. So this is 25. Notice that it's positive. Positive, so heat is added to system. When Q is positive, that means we're adding heat. Then we have work done on the system. Work done on the system by an amount 500 joules. All right? So the system is receiving energy in the form of work. We're doing work on the system by an amount 500 joules as the system goes from state 1 to state 2. Notice it's on the system. The initial energy of the system, E1, is 10 kilojoules. What are we supposed to find? We're supposed to find the final total energy of the system, E2. So find the energy of the system at state 2. Okay, so let's begin here. Analysis. So we want to find an energy, and we have a bunch of works, and we have an initial energy. We want to find the final energy. So clearly the energy balance is involved here. We have energies and energy transfers, and we're trying to relate them. So now the question is, what version of the energy balance are we interested in? Well, let's go look at our versions here. So the problem indicates what kind of a process. We're going from state 1 to state 2. This would appear to be an overall process problem. The overall process energy balance is Q minus W is equal to delta E. Okay? So the change in total energy is equal to the heat added to the system minus the work done by the system. I want to emphasize here that W is defined as positive when it's done by the system. When energy is flowing out of the system in the form of work, W is positive. That's why there's a negative sign here. When the system does work, the energy falls for the system. That's why we have the negative sign. So I want to emphasize this work is done by the system when it's positive. Okay? So let's write the energy balance down for the overall process. So it's a closed system. We're told it's a closed system. There's no mass flowing across our system boundary. So here's our system. There's our system. There's no indication any mass flowing across the system boundary. So we're told it's a closed system. Apparently that's the case. So this is a closed system. Overall process. Okay, let's write the E balance for the overall process closed system. Q minus W is equal to delta E. And this is all from state 1 to state 2. What's delta E from state 1 to state 2? That's going to be equal to, this is the change in total energy. So it's equal to the final energy E2 minus the initial energy E1. Note, E2 is what we're trying to find. So this is Good news, I already see an E2 popping up in the equation. That's what we want to solve for. Now, let's figure out what these various terms are here. I have Q1 to 2. So I've got this, put a little check mark on top. I've got that. I have the initial energy, E1. I've got that too. What about the work? Now, let's be a little careful here. The work, I have a numerical value for it. It's 500 joules, not kilojoules, but joules. And it's indicating that it is on the system. Now, work is supposed to be by the system in the energy balance there. So this is by the system, and this is on the system. So when I plug in the numerical value for work, I need to put a negative sign in front of this because the energy balance says this is work by the system. On the system, we're doing work on the system by the amount of 500 joules, but the energy balance wants that to be written in terms of by the system, so I have to put a negative sign when I plug in the numerical value here, okay? Suffice to say, I have the work. I just need to put a negative sign in front of the numerical value when I plug in to make it by the system. Okay, so I got those three quantities here. Let me solve for E2, which is what I want. E2 is equal to E1. Put this over on the other side of the equation. Plus Q1 to 2 minus W1 to 2. Okay? So I just move the E1 over on the other side of the equation, and then I flip the equation, and I get E2 is equal to E1 plus Q minus W. And I have all three of the terms on the right-hand side of the equation. Let's plug in. Let's plug in. Let me get myself a little bit more room here. Kind of running out of room. So let me move over here. So again, E2 is equal to E1 plus Q1 to 2 minus W1 to 2. Okay, let's plug in. E1 is 10 kilojoules. 10 kilojoules. The heat added is 25 kilojoules. 25 kilojoules. And then I have minus, and I need to put a minus 500 joules there. Minus 500 joules. Now, why is the minus sign here? Because this needs to be work done by the system. By system. Okay. That's why we have the negative sign, so we take work on the system and convert it into work by the system. All right. Now, one little thing here, the units need to be the same for all the terms. This is in kilojoules, kilojoules, joules. Ooh, we need to convert this. Let's see, for every 1 kilojoule, there are 1,000 joules. So the joules cancel out, and I'll get kilojoules in that term. So let's see here, what do I have? 10 kilojoules plus 25 kilojoules plus, the negatives cancel out and I get a plus 0.5, 500 divided by 1,000, so 0.5 kilojoules. Looks to me like 35.5 kilojoules. So E2, the final energy of the system, is equal to 35.5 kilojoules. So let's box that up, okay? 10, 25.5, 35.5 kilojoules. That's the final energy of the system. Final energy of the system. All right? That's pretty simple. So the key here is to remember that the work term in the energy balance is positive by the system. But we were given that work was 500 joules on the system. So I had to put a negative sign in front of the numerical value. It canceled out, and that's where the positive sign came from in front of the work term. Okay? So you got to make sure you understand work in the energy balance is work by the system. Okay? It's positive when it's by the system. Let's do another example here. Take a pause for a moment so I can get it set up.